Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Wano tier list. As we're a bit delayed, as last week I was still having a bit of issues with my throat after recovering from a cold. And also, this is one of the biggest tier lists so far. As you can see, there are 60 units here in the Recon Vehicle tier list that we will have to go over. Though we have them categorized, so it should still be in a somewhat timely manner, but we will see how it goes. And yeah, that all took some time. So we're here on a Saturday. Thanks for joining me in, guys. And also, in general, thanks for the big support over the last couple of months. And yeah, that also leads me to some news, as thanks to all of your support, guys, I am able to reduce my work hours at my main time 40-hour job down to 34 hours, leaving me 6 hours more a week where I can do some sports, where I can do some other stuff for IRL, but also I can do more Wano videos, and I want to use at least a couple of those hours each week to improve my Wano content, to improve my editing skills, and also get you more content in general. So thanks you guys for making that possible, for financial support on Twitch and YouTube, for being a channel member and all of that, and just for liking, subscribing, and watching all of this. And with that said, guys, let's get into the tier list here, as we have a lot to go through, and we're starting with the transport vehicles, the Recon Transport vehicles that all have the extra addition that they also have good optics and mediocre stealth. So they are all pretty helpful at being Recon as well. And yeah, we're gonna start here with the cheapest and the unarmed one, the SPW FUG, which for being unarmed is a bit weaker than the rest for sure. I would put it into C tier, or maybe even D tier, as good optics is not really worth super much, and when it can't defend itself at all, yes, it's fast, that's one thing that it has over some of the others, but it's still not that great. Then we have the SPW 40P, which together with the Sonderwagen is the light MG one that also is relatively fast, and that is quite nice. I would say this is pretty nice higher C tier territory for both of these, which leads you to get your transport, the SAK, and so on fast to the front line, and give you a bit of extra firepower, gives you a unit that can be used with your tanks or on the sideline as a recon unit as well. The Sonderwagen actually being a bit better though, and that's the nice thing about the Sonderwagen, is that it still has the security trade, and that gives it extra optics when standing still. It was removed from the BGS, it wasn't removed from the Sonderwagen. So Sonderwagen actually going up from C to B tier, whilst the SPW 40P as the fast one stays around here. And then we have the M113s and the Spartan. Spartan being a bit better, as it has smoke and 2 frontal armor. The M113 not so much. And all of these are slow with a light MG, and that is not really great, as one thing about Recon vehicles is that you want to use their extra forward deployment to get them faster frontline and the infantry inside of them at the same time. And if they're slow Recon units, you want to have them give you something extra, and these don't really do that. So C tier it is. Yes, they are armored, but not really to a good extent. Like, they don't really survive anything that penetrates armor, and the extra smoke on the Spartan and so on is nice, but it's not really saving these units. So lower C tier here for these guys. They're not completely useless, but they are still not that great either. Then we have the 50 cal and heavy MG unarmored jeeps, and those are fast and can deal some damage, and that puts them, in my eyes, all into B tier here. The normal jeep, the French one, the VLI A50, the USs, all of these, pretty nice. And then we also have the forward deploy variant in a Humvee, and that one is better than them because it has more hit points and it's forward deploy and it has a 50 cal. So those are all pretty nice B tier transports here. 50 cal on them really gets you nice killing power, can help out, and getting your unit still to the front line fast. But having something that can help out a bit with recon, but especially can help out with dealing in those early infantry Recon infantry versus infantry fights with some firepower, helping out from afar and killing off the enemy, especially now that ATGM Rangers have been nerfed for the dragons and the medis. These have become a decent bit better. On the other side, we have the AGS and AGL variants here, which are the Watses, the Luats, and the Humvees, and all of those I would put into D tier, because the AGL is not really worth it above the 50 cal. 50 cal can also help out against some light vehicles and so on. The AGS and AGLs can't really do that at the moment, so I would put all of these guys down here into D tier, and usually can use one of the 50 cal variants, for example, as transports for these units, and you should just do that instead, or not invest the extra price for it. The extra price for the AGL currently really not worth it. It still needs a slight buff versus infantry to really make these guys worthwhile. The Humvees are nice for the extra bit of hit points, but yeah, you can get just the Humvee 50 cal and that does the job already. You don't need the AGL variant really, and yeah, the extra firepower against infantry is not high enough currently to really allow for these guys to do their job. So yeah, that is the position for the AGL and AGS variants right now. Then we have the Humvee Delta, which is another variant of the 50 cal, and that one is a bit worse, I would say, as it's 10 point more expensive. It gets the Special Forces trait, which means that its damage is actually quite decent. If it would be 5 points, I would even say it is around here, maybe even better. But the 10 point difference is it's quite significant, and there, especially as you can bring the deltas just in a normal 50 cal Humvee, I would just go for that. The Special Forces trait makes this unit decent, but it doesn't make it good enough to really represent the 10 points extra in my eyes. So, C tier unit in that regard. With this guy, I would actually put the M113 AG into the D tier. The smoke on the Spartan is somewhat of a rescuing factor here. Rajvetka BTR 60. That is a nice transport. I would even put it into A tier. It can do decent damage output against enemy infantry, against enemy transports as well, and at the same time gets you to a frontline fast and is bulletproof against light fire, against any small arms, so it can go a bit closer against anything that doesn't have an AT infantry wise as well, and so on. Can bully up enemy American recon units, for example, or engineers, and that makes the BTR 60 PB a really nice transport, a really solid one. Can go around scouting for you quickly, and yeah, A tier here. It doesn't have smoke, otherwise it would be really great. If it would be a BTR 80 variant, that would be fantastic, but still a decent A tier here for these guys. Then we have the BMP-1 and the BMV-1P, and both of those 45 points. That is pretty affordable, and that makes these guys quite solid as well. The issue is the speed. They are tracked, which keeps them out of being higher in my eyes, but not paying that much extra for BMP-1P that gives you a bit of extra recon and gets your pretty sizable recon squads to the front line as well. Makes these guys quite solid. So yeah, BMP-1P, cheap and a decent recon unit in general, can go there, give you some optics, can help out with your tank plops, can help out just holding the flank together with your infantry, and that is quite nice. And yeah, as I said, them not being really that much more expensive than a normal BMP is nice for these guys. So A tier this for the BMP-1, which is a nice cheap recon. The M113, and also they have an ATGM. Like the ATGM on the recon unit is really nice. M113 ACAV, they have been reduced in price lately again. They have been an absolute menace in the past. The range of their recoilless rifle has been reduced as well though. And we have the National Guard variant and the normal one. National Guard variant here being 10 points cheaper is actually quite nice. Usually you only get like 5 points cheaper in this category of National Guards. 10 points is, I would say, actually, it makes it the better variant here. I would still only put them in B tier as they're still relatively slow and you don't have any smoke on them or anything like that. Their fire output against infantry is nice. Their killing power against vehicles has been heavily reduced with the range change, though. And that was what kept them into A, or some back in the days when they were even cheaper in S tier, Recon vehicle-wise. But now they don't really kill vehicles that often anymore. Whilst they're still a decent fire support unit against infantry, not getting your Recon units to the front line as quickly as with some normal wheeled Recon units means that they're a B tier unit here only. Then BMP2 and BMP2D. They are a lot more expensive than the BMP1 compared to their normal BMP. Like they're costing 40 points extra. And that premium is for getting a forward deploy on a nice ATGM. Autocannon is decently helpful against any enemy vehicles as well. I would currently put them behind the BMP1 piece though. As, yeah, the extra 40 points here means that combined with the Recon Infantry inside, they are really pricey. Like, that's a really, really expensive package, and that means that your other early start units are somewhat reduced in force, and that is a bit of an issue. Like, they're still worth bringing quite often, like, you still want to have your Motostrelkis in them, but Motorized Red Guards, but they are not that great compared to when they have been only 80 or 90 points. Like 100 points is really expensive for the package in that regard, but it is still a strong package. Like that's the nice thing for deploy on the Conqueror's ATGM that then can shut down a space decently. All of that is pretty good. Then we come to, like those are the last two transports. Now we come to the normal recon vehicles that don't bring any infantry with them. And here we start with the unarmed variants. The first being the Sonderwagen, the MX-10 VOA and the Fist V. These only costing 50 points because they only have very good optics against the exceptional optics of the others. And the very good optics leaves them somewhat lackluster. They, I would say, are only C tier. They at least nowadays are really cheap. Sonderwagen also being decently fast, but they have to compete with other units for slots, and very good optics means that they still don't quite see as much as you want. You kind of still need to move them with your forces, whilst they can't defend themselves, so you always have to have them close to other units, or in a weird position where they are far away from the combat. But when they are far away from the combat, then the very good optics doesn't quite pay off, and you don't really get as much as you want out of them. They can still be handy and just saturating the field really quickly with some recon and helping out in that regard. Like, if you just want to rush around and have some recon just seeing stuff, maybe trying to get some in the backline and so on, there these 50-point units are quite nice. The Sonderwagen being the best at that in that regard then, because it can race behind the enemy lines, as the other two are a bit slower. But yeah, the lack of the extra radar and the extra spotting capabilities there is quite big. Then we come to the Spartans, the Fuchs Razid, the VAB Razid, the Green Archer, and the Rheostat. Those are the exceptional optics recon vehicles with the radar, where I would put the Spartan, the Green Archer, and the Rheostat into low B tier. All of these guys have been pretty helpful lately, but they are, and that's because they have been reduced heavily in price. Having a recon unit that actually spots stuff decently and is affordable is quite nice. These guys all still being hindered by their speed though. They have some extra frontal armor and so on, but the issue is still that they don't quite get as fast to the places where you want them to be as you need them, and pushing with them is then always a bit slower. Meanwhile, the Fuchs Razid and the VAB Razid, these are really good. I would even put them into A tier at the moment. Especially with the tank pushes that they can help out with. The Leos and the AMX-30s and the AMX-10s really profit from knowing where the enemy ATGM positions and so on are. And having a VAB Razid or a Fuchs Razid running around, helping them spotting the enemy positions early on and accompanying their pushes is really nice. So the VAB Rashid's and Fuchs Rashid's for their current price, I would say are really worthwhile. If you can open up the slot, you obviously always have to consider, can you afford it next to infantry that is just standing around and spotting for you and has to take the early skirmishes. Like, they can't help out with that skirmishing part themselves in the early game with the Recon, but they can help out with the pushes really nicely, and they can get into positions, and they also can dodge enemy ATGMs and so on decently because they can break line of sight with their high speed quite easily. So rescuing the Fuchs Razid and the VAB Razid from positions where the enemy is about to find them or is firing an ATGM at them already is a lot easier than for the others, and that makes them A tier in my eyes with their high optics. Now we come to the MG-based Recon vehicles, and here we start with the Ferret, which for 15 points is decent, but it doesn't have the greatest optics, and the MG of it on it is not really killing that much. It's similar to the Sonderwagen, decent to just run behind enemy lines. As a cheap unit that you can maybe find enemy real line units with and just keep cheaply around at places. Sometimes its MG can deter an enemy infantry unit from going places, but the MG is really not that important. It can't kill enemy light vehicles and so on, and that is an issue. That's why it's only 15 points with its light MG. And then we come to the BRDM, the VBL Recon, and the SPW, which is a East German BRDM. And all of these are pretty decent. They all have a heavy MG and they have solid optics. And they have been nerfed lately. They were A tier before. I would put them at high B tier at the moment. All pretty similar in stats. Light armor, good MG, going fast around, shooting stuff up. They can kill enemy light vehicles, so the enemy has to be careful with jeeps and trucks and so on around them. They can help out killing enemy infantry quite nicely and kite them as well, which, especially in gangs of 2 or 3, can make them decent. If the enemy flies a helicopter over them, they can shoot those down as well. And if you get 3 or 4 of them, they can even deal with some light IFVs and APCs that the enemy might have decently. So they're quite nice. They had been an A tier or maybe in some eyes even S tier Recon vehicle before the nerfs. Now they are a solid B tier unit that you still see a lot around, and that still does its job really nicely. So yeah, the SPW 40s and the BRDM and VBL, solid B tier here. When we come to some autocannon slash MG vehicles here, the AML 60s, they have that little mortar kind of gun that only has HE damage though. And the 60 Gendarme only has a 7mm. The 6012 has a 50 cal. And that 50 cal costs it 5 points. But with the 50 cal, it is going somewhat into the club of the VBL Recon. It's better at killing infantry, but it's not better at killing other things with the 50 cal. Whilst the other one is a good bit weaker, I would say. I would put it around here. It doesn't kill enemy vehicles, so that's the issue there. It is decent as fire support against infantry. I would actually put it behind the 50 cal vehicles because of it. And yeah, the not being able to shoot enemy vehicles as nicely as the units with 50 cal is a big deficit. So it's decent infantry support. It goes around, spots things decently, but it can't help out against enemy infantry, and that keeps it out of the higher bracket here, whilst still being okay though. It's still a decent unit. And now we come into the range of the autocannons, and that is a different, special section here, with the Scimitars, the Fox, the LAV, and the Lux, and all of these are pretty solid. Scimitars are, in my eyes, B tier at the moment. I would put them ahead of the ACAVs. They have a solid autocannon. Their speed is the issue for them. They can't get to the front line as nicely as you want them, but they can kill off enemy recon vehicles. They can kill off enemy light IFVs as well, like they beat martyrs and so on because of their range. And they also come in handily against infantry and enemy light vehicles and just the autocannon doing a good job. But they are slower, and the speed is the issue for the Scimitars. They arrive at the front line later, so they can't really help out with the first level of skirmish, or they can only after a short delay. And they also can't reposition and hunt in the enemy rear. They are a frontline unit first and foremost, and that keeps them down a bit. Luxus on the other side, they can go places, and that makes them pretty solid. Issue with the Luxus, the autocannon it has is the weakest of the autocannons. The German 20mm is pretty terrible, but it still is better than an MG. And that means it still beats all the BRDMs and so on. It still can help out nicely against infantry. It still can be really nice to shoot down enemy transports behind enemy lines, and that is nice with the looks. You can move around, and if you get it onto a road, it can shoot that nicely. Not from quite as many angles as the British and American autocannons, as it doesn't have the range and the accuracy to shoot vehicles down from long range quickly. But if you get it a bit closer on a closer angle, it still can be a nice ambusher. It still can bully enemy infantry, especially now after the nerf of the Dragon and the Medis. That makes the looks a lot better and really enables the German playthrough similar to the Fuchs of a lot of Leos, a lot of Luxus, a lot of Martyrs, and then just going around there with those little vehicles and bullying the enemy. West German playthrough at the moment, pretty based around that kind of playstyle, so the looks fits really nicely in. Fox does it, but better, and that makes it a high A tier unit. It has been nerfed quite a good amount. Both having smoke helps out, getting out of harm's way decently as well. But yeah, the Fox just has the way better autocannon. It wins the duels, it wins duels against other light autocannon vehicles decently often as well. It has been nerfed a lot since its first iterations when it was absolute S tier though. But it's still a really nice vehicle. It goes fast, it goes places, it shoots things, and you can get it out of harm's way thanks to its smoke if you micro it nicely. So, Fox up there. The LAV, I would put ahead of it. It's still nice, fast, best autocannon, smoke, and decently survivable as well. But by now, 100 points is a lot. So its high stealth is pretty nice as well, but the LAV is not the absolute killer that it has been in the past. For its price, like the efficiency is not as insane as it has been in the past. It still can, if you don't have a unit that can deal easily with it, be really frustrating to deal with. A couple of LAVs in nice spots are still super scary in an opener of 82nd, so it's still a key unit there, but it's not the monster that had been back in the day. So LAV here, high A tier unit, but not much better than that. Then we come to the gun-based, the light gun-based vehicles with rapid fire. And there we start with the Scorpion. And that is another C tier unit, as that gun is just not good. The Scorpion here going into C tier as a unit that can shoot at stuff and that has some damage on it, but the gun just having so low accuracy, especially no motion accuracy on it, is a problem, and the range of it is not really helping out super much. Like, it's okay, but the HE damage and so on, it's not amazing. Rate of fire is mediocre as well, so yeah, it goes there. BT-76 slightly better, as it has slightly better rate of fire, resolute trait and so on helping out decently, and it has amphibious trait, so that all helps out a bit. But actually no, because it doesn't have smoke, it actually isn't better. Like, the resolute trait and all is nice, but Scorpion is around the same thing. Like, the BT-76 having slightly higher rate of fire is nice, but it's both are not that great. Like, the lack of smoke on the BT-76 is pretty frustrating. So they go around here as a unit that does its thing, but isn't that great. And the Saladin has a similar gun, but at least it's fast, so it can help out a bit early on. I would put it around here. It has smoke, it has that decent gun, it has 2 MGs, so it can do some damage, it can be annoying behind enemy lines. Issue is that the disheartened trait holds it back decently with like reducing an already low accuracy even further. Not being able to wet it up means that you also can't really buff that. And like really the disheartened trait making it annoying as an ambusher because the enemy will get to aim at you in a similar manner as you aim on them. Your ambush effect is a bit reduced because your aim time is so long and so on. And then with the lower accuracy, all of that kicks in, and it's also only very good optics on these guys, so they're not the absolute sniper in the rear. So yeah, Saladin going around here. And then we have the BRM-1, man. That has a cannon, but also has exceptional optics. That's another radar unit. That's why we didn't have that many before with the Soviets, only the Rheostat in that earlier category. And they go up here because they are an enabler of tank pushes. They have a smoke, that helps out big time. They can win fights against enemy light vehicles and shoot down some enemy transports and so on as well. Their gun is pretty mediocre, similar to the BMPs. I would actually put them. I would actually put the BMPs behind this here, like behind the Razids as well, as the exceptional optics on these guys is so important, and they are the enabler of tank pushes. They are in a lot of packed divisions, the East German one having Resolute, making it a slight bit better as well, though it's not that significant on this vehicle. But like, yeah, the cannon being able to shoot things, the smoke and the 3 frontal armor, making them able to survive autocannon fire and dodging away from enemy fire decently is really nice as well. And they are just there to enable your T-ATBVs, your T-72s, your T-55s to shoot at things, and that is really important, making the BRM-1's key factor of a lot of armored divisions and armored pushes. Then we come to the ATGM vehicles, with the VBL Milan being the first one. That is another A-tier unit here. I would put it pretty high in A tier, as it is fast, it has a strong ATGM, it has a Milan 2, and the Milan 2 is a fantastic ATGM. It has 34 damage. Range is the only issue on it, but with the VBL Milan being able to reposition, also having an MG that can help out a bit against infantry sometimes, and it's not completely defenseless there, can slow down infantry that tries to push it by stunning them down a bit, and then repositioning, giving you a bit more time to act and so on. So the VBL Milan, nice A-tier unit here. Fast going around, and actually I would even maybe put them into S tier. Let's put them into S tier here, as they can snipe heavy things from annoying angles with their slightly improved like stealth over normal Milan vehicles. They also can survive a bit more stuff, and all of that helps out the VBL Milan. Like, the good stealth is really big on this, and the very good optics helps out decently, but like, yeah, it's a really nice sniper vehicle. The M150 only has a pretty terrible ATGM, but that ATGM has long range. Mediocre stealth only good optics. It's only a 40-point unit though. That makes it a high B-tier unit for me. Like, you still see them a lot around in American divisions, especially because they're so cheap. They arrive at the front line a bit late, so they're not there to snipe the enemy setup, but they're there to snipe any movement that tries to annoy you on flanks, or tries to just push you with some IFVs or so on. The 16 damage means that it doesn't one-shot a lot of things, but it does damage them, it does stun them down. The tow on it is nice. The 50 cal can come in handy against vehicles and against infantry as well, and they have a smoke, and that helps a lot as well, making them a solid B tier unit. The speed and the low optics and the low stealth keeping them a bit down here, like the VBL Milan with the good stealth there, a lot better. And then we come to the Recon Bradleys, and they are fantastic. Both of them are S tier units in my eyes. The A2 even better because it can survive a decent amount of beating, though it comes with lower availability. That's the frustrating part about it. But outside of them, the M3A1 opener, TOW 2 that can slap, one-shot a lot of things, and the autocannon that can deal with enemy recon infantry nicely as well if you reveal them. All of that on a chassis that gets a bit of extra stealth over the normal Bradley, which is already fantastic. And that all warrants its really high price. And like the TOW 2 and the Bushmaster being so amazing makes it a lot better than even the BMP2 here. Plus, you don't have to bring infantry with them, keeping them cheaper than the BMP2 in the package. And that is nice in that regard, because you then can bring a couple of other units, which for these divisions that get this is pretty important, as the American divisions are mostly relatively expensive, like 3rd US, 11th ACAF, and so on. And yeah, the Bradley CFVs are absolutely fantastic. They really slap hard with the TOW 2s, and that makes them so dangerous. Then we come to the gun-based vehicles, the heavier gun-based vehicles and tanks. AML 90 here, being first, 80 points. It has a mediocre gun. That 90mm is not the best gun out there. It has decent range though, and it only being heat is annoying, but it is still a very good optics and good stealth, especially. The good stealth here on the AML 90 is important, whilst it's only 80 points, so it's a lot cheaper than other recon gun vehicles as well. And that allows it to go around sneakily and still shoot up enemy setups and go behind enemy lines. The AML-90s, similar to the LAV, as an ambusher behind enemy lines, can be nice. They don't survive nicely against helicopters though, so they have something that can hunt them down, and that's the issue. But they are super fast, and they can be really nice behind enemy lines, and that makes them a solid A-tier recon unit. The ERC Sagai and the MX-10s here, now with the long-range guns, and the slightly worse stealth though. Only good optics on the Sagai, mediocre stealth, very good optics on the MX-10 RCs. The good optics only on the Sagai, in my eyes, makes it a high B-tier unit, one of the top B-tier units, as the gun still slaps, but it also doesn't have the penetration to one-shot as much with only 15 pen. The accuracy and so on is all decent, and high speed, but the only good optics and the mediocre gun, while still being similar in price to the MX-10 RC, like, that makes it only high B tier, but that's still a solid unit, whilst the MX-10 RCs and the Subleaned are still S tier units. Like, the difference there is quite significant, because the very good optics on these guys is really helpful, and the guns have high accuracy. 65% accuracy is insane. And then the Subleaned can one-shot so much with 19 pen, but the MX-10 RC with 17 pen still can one-shot a decent amount of things, especially once they get closer. So that is really helpful. Good rate of fire, good speed, and all of that. So the MX-10s here, really strong Recon tanks still. They have been nerfed a good bit, and I would say they are currently worse than the Bradleys, but they are still so important in the decks that get them. Fifth Play and TKS rely on these guys a decent amount still, and they do a really good job there still. The French Recon here, going pretty well. I would put it like this, with the Bradleys in charge, and then the other guys behind. Then we have more American Recons. ACAF doesn't feel that great. The Shilka, the Sheridan ACAF here, the Shilka ATGM is terrible. The gun is decent against infantry, but the rate of fire holds it back, and once it gets stunned down a bit, it goes absolutely down the drain. And the range there, not that great either. It can't really kill enemy vehicles that well, the accuracy is pretty terrible. 50 cal and all is helpful, but this thing feels overpriced. I'm not recommending it too much. The LAV isn't the nice 100 point vehicle. The ACAF, you still sometimes use it, but yeah, the 100 points is just so costly for what it does. And yeah, it doesn't even have the Shilka, right? So it's just a really terrible gun. Yeah, was a bit confused there for a second, guys. But yeah, the 50 cal and all of that not really making it worth it. Only good stealth, no armor. Like, it's basically, it's slightly, it's kind of in the power level of a BMP-1, to be honest. Like, 3 frontal armor, slightly faster, but outside of that, it's on the same level as a BMP-1. It has a better gun, but it doesn't have an ATGM. It has a 50 cal, so it's a bit better against infantry, but it's worse than the BMP-2 by a long shot. And yeah, costing the same price here is not worth it. The Sheridan looks like a tank. It is really an IFV with a turret, a big turret. That's how you should see them, and that is not worth 100 points. And then the M60 ACAF, the National Guard variant, and that is really solid. You need them in the stack when you want to do the M60 plops. I would put them into lower A tier, as they're still only good optics, but that can be helpful to at least spot some things earlier. The National Guard debuff is annoying for some things, but it has smoke, it has a decent gun. It's only the 1925 meter range, so it can't snipe enemy deployments. It's really there for the tank pushes, and that job it does really solid. It doesn't do the early skirmishing thing as well as others, but it has a 50 cal and so on, so it's not useless against infantry or anything like that either. Just that it isn't a sniper, because it's slower on the front line, and it doesn't have a long-range gun like an ARC or the AMXs or the Bradleys with their long-range ATGMs. Then we have the M1A1 ACAF. That's another S tier unit. It's so important for the tank pushes of the 11th, and also it is really nice to have around in the early game to help out with those early skirmishes, because you have a lot of other assisting units in that deck that can help out with skirmishing, like decent helicopters, the Bradleys, and so on. And if you have an M1A1 ACAF coming in there shooting enemy recon vehicles that go down quite quickly to its 20 pen gun, and you can shoot down enemy infantry of them, but not having to worry about a single AT rocket or ATGM one-shotting you, the ACAF slaps in right there, and the extra price for it, like, it's lower than the extra price that the BMP2 pays for. So, and that percentage-wise is then really, really low. And since they get 2 per card, the card efficiency is decent as well. So the M1A1 ACAF, solid S tier unit, really nice unit at the moment. Highly recommended using it. It's not as much of a killer as the Bradley or so on for its price, and its optics only being good keeps him in check. Like, that's why Recon Tanks and 1.0 are not OP, because they can't really hunt down enemies all around. They are just able to find threats attacking you easier than your normal tanks, and can help out with your tanks in that regard. Like, they're still more a reactionary force, but that extra reactionary ability to shoot at enemy ATGMs that shoot at you a bit earlier than usual is quite nice. And then we have a really wild unit, which I hope gets better in the future, as currently the ZSU-23, its ability at shooting against helicopters is still limited by its range, but it's nice. Like, the 2475 meter range is decent there. It has slightly better range against ground targets. Issue is, it can't shoot against armored vehicles, and its HE output against infantry is also still abysmal, and that makes the ZSU-23 not that great. It has a recon radar for the ground, but it's still, I would argue, for its price currently, a D tier unit. Like, if it gets buffed against ground units, it can really fast go up here. But for 100 point currently, it's not that worthwhile. Like, its capability as a early game support unit is not really there. And in this deck, in 56, you also get the Stinger Recon Infantry, so you don't need the anti-helicopter of it at all, really. And the anti-ground of it is just not there. It's slight extra range against other AA gun vehicles and so on. That's all nice things, but because the damage there is so low, and it's such a high-priced unit with low armor still, it's only a D tier unit here. Like, you don't get that much out of it, more out of it than the normal exceptional optics vehicle, and it doesn't have smoke like the BRM. Like I would say, efficiency-wise, it's worse than a BRM1, and costs you 45 points more. Like, it can't defend itself, it can't go with a tank push because it gets shot and immediately dies because you can't smoke it off, and it only has one frontal armor. And that is a big issue here compared to the BRM1, and it costs nearly double. So, yeah, currently a D tier unit. And that leaves us with a really, really long tier list. And we can zoom out here a bit to get them all into one window. And yeah, a lot of vehicles to go through. Let me know down below what your favorite Recon vehicle is and what you think about all of this. And I hope to see you all in the next one, guys. Bye bye, and have a great day.